means I have about 10 weeks left until she will be here. Hi my loves, welcome back to another video. I'm super excited to be back. I am a little bit tired, so bear with me if I yawn quite a bit. I'm at that point, okay, where I'm just exhausted. Even doing nothing, I am just exhausted, because even when I'm doing nothing, I'm still doing a lot. My body's still doing a lot. So this week's video is going to be week 29 and week 30 of my pregnancy. I am currently, as I'm filming this, 30 weeks and a day. Yesterday, I officially became 30 weeks. So that means I have about 10 weeks left until she will be here. That length in pregnancy is 7 months and the 3rd trimester. So last week, baby was about the size of an acorn squash. I've never really seen one of those in real life, but I do know that size-wise, it's about 15.2 inches or so. And she actually weighed 2 pounds 9 ounces. So I had my growth scan at 29 weeks. They did it 3 days earlier than it was actually scheduled for. So that's okay to me. She actually gained quite a bit, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Oh, sorry. We'll talk about that a little bit further into the video. And then for this week, she's about the size of a zucchini. So she did gain or grow about 1/2 of an inch, or give or take a little bit there, and she should be around about probably like 3 pounds now, maybe a little bit even over that. So as far as baby, last week, so at 29 weeks, mainly the things with her is that the hair on her skin is starting to disappear, it's starting to shed. So when you are pregnant and your baby is in there cooking up, they get a layer of hair around their body, all over, on their skin, everywhere. It kind of is a protectant, like something to protect them pretty much. And before they're born, they shed it. Some babies are born still with a little bit on there, especially if you have them early or they're preterm labor. Your baby will tend to have the hair on them. Oh, I forgot the technical term for the hair. I know it starts with an L. But my son actually was a scheduled C-section. I had him at 39 weeks. And he still had a lot of hair, so it just kind of depends on your genetics, I feel like, and a lot of other different factors, as much as to how much they shed or how much they still have after the fact. The hair on the head is thickening. She can now see, and she's gaining muscle and fat. So that's what was mainly happening last week. This week, she's starting to practice breathing more often. So she was already practice breathing, but it was more of kind of a sparsed out thing. Now it's about 30 to 40% of the time that she's in there, she's practice breathing. So it's starting to kind of go up and be more frequent. Her bones are starting to harden a lot more. She's growing fingernails now. And she's got a lot of hair on her head at this point now. So last week it was mainly kind of thickening up. Now it should be a little bit more thick, a lot more noticeable at this point in the pregnancy. And then she's also practice grabbing. So like trying to practice grabbing on my umbilical cord and things like that. which I actually feel like I feel her do a lot of the time. So just as a heads up, it's not the most comfortable feeling, but you can definitely kind of tell. So that's pretty much all for baby. She's definitely growing, and it makes me super happy to know that. So now we're gonna move on to me. So I'm gonna start off with all the symptoms and stuff that I've been feeling over the last 2 weeks, and then I'm gonna go over the complications in the labor and all the updates with all that stuff to see if anything's changed, or to just let you guys know if I'm still planning the same stuff, you know, just to kind of update, because that stuff can change pretty fast, very random, depending on what's all going on in your pregnancy. So for me, for symptoms, I will say that all of my symptoms are kind of similar to the last video. There are some that are a lot more frequent, or maybe that increased. Some of them are probably a little bit more new, but they all are the same for the week 29 and week 30, so I'm not going to split them up into ones from last week and ones from this week. They're all pretty much the same. So one thing I did notice is that my veins are a lot darker now, more visibly darker, especially on my chest. At this point, your breasts, especially if it's your second pregnancy, they tend to kind of fill out more and do everything a little bit earlier or more fast. And you may even experience leaking at this point, which I have experienced on occasion, not very frequently, not something that's become a problem yet, or that's kind of been an everyday thing, but I have noticed some leaking, and the visually darker veins, and my nipples are a lot darker and bigger, and like they're kind of just always hard. TMI. The next biggest symptom I will say that I've noticed, especially over the last few days, is that my stomach feels extremely tight. I feel like there's no room left in there, and I know that she's gonna continue to grow. I still have about 10 weeks left, and I already feel like it's just so full. So the tight stomach is definitely a big one right now. Increased aches and leg cramps. So I've been aching for a few weeks now, a few months, and it's kind of normal. But it has been getting increasingly worse, to the point where I'm having a lot of hard time sleeping and just staying asleep. Getting comfortable is really, really hard at this point. It's almost impossible to get comfortable, like ever. The leg cramps are new. I did experience them very, very rarely in the beginning of this pregnancy, but now it's increasingly getting worse. The last 3 nights I've actually gotten woken up in the middle of the night or out of my sleep with cramping on my legs. So they hurt. I will not sugarcoat that. They hurt so bad. And it's really a mind thing. You have to kind of slow yourself down and just take a deep breath and do the stretches that you can find on like YouTube videos and stuff like that. I usually just kind of stretch my leg out completely and do this with my foot, and that usually kind of calms the cramping down. But it's hard to get to that point of being able to do that because of how intense the cramp is. Like I pretty much cry every time. It really hurts. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. I'm not gonna try to tell you that it's not the worst pain. Like, it definitely really, really hurts. So there's no sugarcoating that. But as far as the aches, I feel like the main areas of my body that the aches is my back. Not a certain area of my back. It's honestly my entire back. The middle, upper, lower, like it just is all spread out. Some days it's the whole thing. Some days it's just areas and it just flips around. My butt, I can't sit for a long time. I noticed that. Or my butt will really, really, really hurt. My pelvis and just everything will just really hurt. an ache. My legs are starting to kind of ache, especially towards the pelvis area, towards the like joints and stuff where all that everything is kind of connected. That's where a lot of my aches are for that, and my hips as well. Even my lower legs, like the muscles in them and just my whole body kind of really just honestly aches. I already kind of mentioned the trouble sleeping. Another newer one is swelling. I've been having a little bit of swelling in my feet, especially at night or like in the morning when I wake up. I'll be a little bit more swell than normal. My hands kind of do it a little bit too. Like if I go to sleep, when I wake up, my rings will be a little bit tighter than normal. Throughout the day, it'll go back to normal and I'll be fine. But the swelling is kind of becoming a little bit of a thing. Another one is shortness of breath. So I feel like that's kind of why I yawn a lot, or why I've yawned a lot in this video, is because trying to talk and make sure that I'm keeping up with my level of oxygen intake, of trying to breathe, is really, really hard. Like I said, my stomach feels extremely tight, so doing really anything feels like an excessive workout as far as breathing wise. Like just going for a little bit of a walk, I can't breathe. Going upstairs, by the time I'm up, I'm out of breath. Tossing and turning at night, I'm out of breath. Getting out of bed in the morning, I'm out of breath. Like it's all just really kind of hard to do and not feel like your shortness, that like your breath is getting taken from you a little bit. So that's definitely a big one. And it's kind of just getting worse, especially when I eat. That's another part. If I eat, it almost feels hard to breathe. So I have to eat very small amounts very often to keep up with my appetite and not feel like I'm like suffocating myself with food. Then frequent urination, that's a huge one. Always have to go to the bathroom. My pregnancy brain is still definitely up there. I definitely feel pretty slow sometimes and forget a lot of things. So pregnancy brain is definitely a big one right now. And then my appetite is a little bit larger, as I said, so I have to eat very little amounts, but very, very, very frequently to keep up with my appetite. Because if I wait even like 10 minutes past the point that I would usually eat something, I feel like I'm starving. And like there's absolutely nothing in my body. So keeping up with my appetite is important, which is why I've been trying to eat more healthy and eat more filling foods. Kind of drink shakes and stuff, things that can fill you up but they're not heavy, you know. They're not gonna be taking up all the little bit of room that's left in my stomach that she's not already squishing. So yeah, the last two symptoms, or you know, what I would say is nesting mode is real. I'm really at the point where I'm very focused on making sure that I'm getting everything ready, getting everything clean, set up, just all of that, you know, thinking and figuring out what I really want for her as far as gifts for her shower, which will be in January. And then just the little stuff like the room, washing all of her clothes. Like I'm just kind of in that point where I'm really just trying to get ready for her to be here. Then the last biggest symptom, this is the ultimate most important one, especially if you are like maybe a first-time mom and you're not sure how to feel about this, or even if you've already had a child before and this is the first time that you're experiencing this, or it's worse with this second pregnancy or whatever number pregnancy this is. But mainly I want to address this for those of you women who watch me, who have OI or who know people who have OI or just are curious about just curious about it in general, you know. The biggest symptom I will say I've had with both pregnancies that I feel like has a lot to do with the OI is PGP. PGP is pelvic girdle pain. It's honestly very painful aching in your pelvis area. With my son, it hurt. I remember saying that it hurt in my videos. It was tolerable and it wasn't as bad as it is now. With my second pregnancy, it is a lot worse. And I feel like there's a lot of factors to that. One being that I feel like she's a lot bigger than he was. And she's a lot more active than he was. And I also did not work with my son. I was on bed rest at about 20 weeks with him, and I was not allowed to work. So I was very much at home, resting, relaxing, doing the at-home things, and I wasn't really doing anything crazy or excessive. I wasn't working. I wasn't out of the house every day. I wasn't moving around all the time. So I feel like that definitely has a lot to do with it as well. But the biggest thing with this one for me is that with my son, it was more of a pressure feeling. It just kind of felt like a very heavy pressure that I wasn't used to. With her, it's pressure, and it's also like popping, like a cracking, popping feeling. And I know that sounds scary, and I don't really know what to say about it, if it's normal or not, because like I said, I didn't experience it with my son, but it is very painful and it's very uncomfortable, and I usually struggle with it the most at night, but I honestly struggle with it in everything that I do. So going from sitting to standing, I'll feel pops or, you know, like little cracks almost is what it kind of feels like. The way that I could explain the feeling of it, of the cracking, is like cracking your back, but not the relief feeling. It's just, that's what it kind of sounds like and feels like, but it hurts. When I usually feel those types of things, like I said, is when I'm going from sitting to standing, standing to sitting, especially when I'm laying down and I'm trying to lay on a certain side or flip from one side to the other. I feel it a lot. It just feels like a lot of shifting and moving that I feel like it shouldn't be feeling. But like I said, nothing bad is coming out of it. She is okay, she's alive, she's safe, I'm okay, I'm able to still walk and move around and do everything. It just is really, really, really painful. So it's something that I would definitely talk to your doctor about if you're experiencing it, especially if you have OI. Bring it up to them, because as you know, OI has to do with your bones. And so if your bones are popping and cracking and aching really, really bad, and it's concerning you, and you have OI, then you definitely should be saying something to your doctor. That is actually the only reason that I've contemplated going on to bed rest, maybe earlier than her coming, just because it is very, very painful, like I said, and it's almost to the point where some days I barely can get out of my bed without crying. So that's probably my biggest symptom, I will say, that I've been experiencing, progressively getting worse and worse and worse, and just not going away. So now that all that's out of the way, I want to talk about the complications of this pregnancy and what's all going on with that. So as I said before, I am high risk. I have OI. That's the main reason why that I'm high risk, but I also was high risk because my daughter was weighing underweight. So she was under the 10th percentile for weight. As of my last appointment, which was on November 7th. She is actually in the 22nd percentile now. So now that she's over the 10th percentile for weight, she is no longer at risk for being, low birth weight or anything like that. The concerns that they had before are no longer there. So that means that my every week, twice a week appointments are done. I go back to every month or every 3 weeks or whatever, pretty much back to the normal schedule. And I just have the regular growth scans. I don't have to do all the movement scans and all that crazy stuff anymore. So that is literally the best feeling in the world, was when I found that out. I am super happy about that. That day I also talked to the anesthesia guy, and that was freaking awesome. So this brings me into the labor section of the video, talking about my labor plan, the updates about it and everything. So I was informed by the anesthesiologist that I have the option to do a C-section or a VBAC. They don't see why there should be an issue trying either one. They do have their, pros and cons of everything, but of each side, but they both have pros and they both have cons. So they didn't really tell me anything that terrified me. And they gave me a lot of input and insight into things I wasn't sure about before, and made me a lot more comfortable. So what I mean by have the option is, as I said it before, I didn't want to have a C-section because with my son, they made me get put to sleep. They gave me general anesthesia, so I was not awake for my son's birthing. I did not experience anything. I don't remember anything. I didn't hear him cry. I did not see him or hold him first. I did not wake up next to him. They did that because they didn't feel comfortable doing a spinal tap at the hospital that I went through for my son. This hospital is willing to do a spinal tap for me. And it's not just one anesthesiologist that was okay with it, that like the one that I talked to. He also consulted with all of the rest of the anesthesiologists that work there that he knows, or that are on call, or probably will be there the day that I deliver. And they are all willing to do it. They all don't see a reason as to why they can't try, mainly because I've never had any issues with my spine or my back or my neck. They're not deformed or anything. I've never had fractures or breaks or anything along those lines with my back. So they are willing to try. They also told me I'm allowed to have an epidural if I choose to do a VBAC. That would be 100% my choice. I don't have to get the epidural. I can do it all natural if I'd like. But they wanted to let me know that the option is there, because that also does go in your back. So with that being said, knowing that I have the option of both, there are pros and cons to each side. The pros and cons to the C-section, again, is that it lowers my chances of my uterus rupturing during the process of labor, because I did have a C-section the first time. Complications from that happening is it could harm me, it could harm baby, it could harm both of us. And it really is a very chaotic situation to be in. But the pros of having, or the cons of having a C-section, is that the spinal may not work and I may have to get put under anyways. So there is definitely some pros and cons to that, but there also are the pros and the cons to the VBAC. So the cons for the VBAC are my uterus could rupture, my pelvis could break, or it could just not work and I could just not be able to push her out and end up having to have a C-section anyways, which would then cause issues for whether or not I would be able to have the spinal, or whoever is there, whether or not they would feel comfortable doing it. So the pros of that is that obviously I would be awake. I would be able to experience all of the labor that I wanted to, the contractions and everything. But I feel like there's a lot more negatives that could go wrong with trying to push out naturally versus a C-section. And at the end of the day, any way I choose could ultimately result in having to have a C-section. Anyways, there's a lot of things that could happen or go wrong. Baby could just be breech and not have flips down. So there's a lot of things, and I feel like the best option at this point now, with knowing everything that I know and knowing what options I have, is I'm really leaning towards doing another C-section again and trying for that spinal tap, because then I know that me and baby are gonna both be safe and okay afterwards. I also have the option or the opportunity to still see them be born without any of the other complications. And then that way I have a scheduled date, so I will know for sure that whoever is going to be doing my surgery will be comfortable doing the spinal tap, or at least trying it. So I know I have the opportunity to at least try. And in worst case scenario, if I have to get put to sleep again, it is what it is. Knowing that I at least have the option to try and not have to get put to sleep is my biggest thing. That's what's most important to me. So that's kind of where I'm going for that. As far as my guests that I will have there, the same person that I said before, which is my best friend Cheyenne, she's definitely on that list. I'm also considering having my sister maybe, because she has been through having 3 kids already. So it'll be nice to have maybe somebody there that's been through it. All of hers were a C-section as well, so that'll be even more to kind of, something even more to kind of relate to with her on. And then I do also have one more person that's willing to visit in the hospital. I don't expect them to be there when I deliver, but I do hope that they end up visiting, and that is my other best friend. I will not say their name just because it's a little bit newer of a friendship. My best friend Cheyenne is always going to be my best friend Cheyenne, so that's why she gets to get the clout. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so then the rest of this video is just my cravings and my belly bump. So cravings, I have a lot more than I used to. I now have the usual water and potatoes. Those are my biggest 2. But to add to those, I also have been wanting cereal a lot lately. Not really any specific kind, just anything that looks good. I think it's more of the milk that I like. Also, I like eggs, breakfast foods. Those are a big thing for me. These drinks right here, I've been craving. Not even these drinks, this drink, only the Grain Machine. This is the one that I've been craving the most. I haven't tried really any of the other ones. None of the other ones looked that appetizing to me. This one, however, I tried it and I love it. And it's very, very healthy for you. Mexican food is another one. Specifically elotes and tamales are my biggest ones. But any Mexican food, honestly, I've kind of really been craving it a lot. So those are mainly my biggest cravings lately. And then as far as aversions or things that I don't really like, there's kind of a lot of adds to those as well. The same ones as usual. Soda, I cannot do soda. I don't like meat with bones in it. I feel like I've said that before, but I don't. I can't eat anything with bones in it. It just disgusts me. I don't like bacon that is not crispy. If it has any rubberiness to it, I get disgusted and I gag, throw up, almost vomit, you know, the nasty. Sausage and like pork, kind of. I don't really like it as much anymore. And then the last one is Chinese food. I don't like Chinese food right now. I don't want to eat it. It sounds disgusting. It grosses me out. And I've had that be the thing, like the way, or that's been like a thing since I was first pregnant. So I'm not sure what it is about it. I think maybe I just ate the wrong Chinese food one day and now the idea of it is just oof. But yeah, those are the biggest ones. So to end this video out, I'm gonna give you my belly bump update. this is a little bit longer of a video. I might end up editing this, but probably not because I like to do raw videos. This is the bump. It's real big, and she's poking. And it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's very much full and very much hard. But other than that, that is really all I have for you guys for the last 2 weeks. The next video will obviously be week 31 and 32 probably. Or, you know, who knows, maybe I'll make some other kind of a video. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. This one is kind of long, but I just had a lot to talk about and a lot to share. And I'm just really excited for my daughter to be here. So, yeah. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, loves.